Do you do you think that the first two plays sort of mirror each other in some way, just because of how you're describing it? But I also felt that they had more of like a propaganda edge to them, where the two characters really think like they're Gandhi or something, and Alexander is more of even though he has differing issues with his psyches. Alexander is more a fully realized character than they are. They have speeches that were Cyrus and Sargon that remind me sort of like distilled Wallace Stevens poem, where I think it's Sargon is talking about the mantis overthrowing all of the ants. I think that it reminds me almost of the perspective of like Hitler with Triumph of Will, where they're trying to establish him as this great leader when he's a raging psychopath. And he does have some of that interior where I believe, I forget whether it's Sargon or Cyrus, has all the people that he's destroyed through a given time come and speak to him.
Well, again, because of the antiquity, the nature of antiquity, Sargon existed 4,300 years ago. So
Mhm.
very little is really known about him. The only things that we know about him is, and it's only in the last 20 or 30 years, I think, that his daughter Enheduanna, uh, that she was the first published poet that anyone knows of. That she had her poems published in books and distributed, available, I guess, for sale for the illiterate peasantry there. We know the names of his family. We know a little bit about the mythos of Sargon, but that's about it. So there's the most to fill in there, and so it's the least complex of the plays. Cyrus, we know a little bit more about. We know about, uh, and is it Sargon who floats down the river? Yeah, no, Sargon. Or is it, no, yeah, Sargon is the one who floats down the river. Cyrus's origin myth is that he was going to be killed, and he was saved by General Harpagus, and he was given to a shepherd, his first father, his adoptive father. Um, Sargon was the one who has the father who was in reality one of the chief gardeners of the garden of Akkad, the capital city. We know a little bit more about Cyrus and his battles, and one of my favorite things is one of the things I changed is there's some mythos that Cyrus was killed in battle, and most of the claims usually have some no name chieftain, or in one instance even a sort of no name chieftain, female chieftain who poisons Cyrus and kills him. But I think probably the reality is he was so well insulated that Cyrus probably died of natural causes, or maybe palace intrigue. Someone could have poisoned him. But I make him die of natural causes here. And when he conquered the kingdom of the empire of Lydia, which is Croesus, the Croesus, as rich as Croesus. Croesus had the Scrooge McDuck like safe vault where he had his his riches stored. Croesus then there is several claimants by some historical sources that Croesus's life was spared, and this made for me using the idea that Croesus became a counselor, which is what some of these histories claim, became a counselor to uh, Cyrus. To me, is good because it gives two men, and it shows the friendship of two middle-aged men who aren't necessarily warring at it. And Croesus at one point even says in the Cyrus play that he's kind of glad that he lost his kingdom because it sort of recentered him, that he wasn't as he didn't need to conquer as much. And then Alexander, we know the most about. I mean, even if you Google now, there probably, I don't even think there's a single. There might be a book or two about Sargon in the context of Mesopotamian kings and whatnot, but I don't think there's a single book devoted to the life of Sargon. There's probably 5 books you could get now if you bought, and some of them are a century old, about Cyrus the Great. But literally, Alexander explodes in all of publishing history, there's got to be close to 1,000 books having been written over the years about Alexander the Great. Not only that, but him in works of art, him in films. Alexander the Great, in a sense, was probably the most well-known BC human being to have ever existed. And he has the Christian thing where he believed he was the son of the god of his that he believed in. He was the son of Zeus. So I can play with that. So there's a lot more to play with Alexander. Now, in some ways, that's a hindrance too, because like with the Arthurian mythos, there's some stuff and myths about Alexander that are kind of they don't provide any backdrop. I didn't want to go into whether or not Alexander was gay or bisexual. He probably was, but it would have been so obvious to center the play on him.
You have him mention things like that, like he fucks men.
Yeah.
To I forget who it is. The character, I think it was that Anthony Hopkins played in that terrible Oliver Stone movie. I think he's talking about that character.
Yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name, but he's talking about how he fucks men anyway.
Yeah, and because we know the most about him, and we know he was a complex character. We know he was very well educated. He was it? I think it's Aristotle who was his mentor. The philosopher. And so we get in his mind, or has Aristotle come to visit him, or is in his mind? So that's why Alexander split up into 4 separate characters in a sense. There's good Alexander, or bad Alexander. I call him Alex. Bad Alex, then God Alex, and then Great Alex. And so what happens in that play is that
all 4 are assholes.
Yeah, and the thing though is, we see early on that one of the Alexanders rapes the herald, or the female character who's what the hell do I call her name in these regalia, these things that play. Let's see, it's Ptolemy the Pythia. It's the character known as the Pythia, who is the fortune teller of the Delphic oracle. So the whole play is set in Alexander's tent, pitched up outside the temple to Apollo in Delphi. And so the Pythia is the female thing there. And one of the Alexanders, I think it might be I think it might be Great Alexander rapes her or rapes her, but then later on, the one feeling the guilt about it and the one going mad about it is Bad Alexander, or something like that. And so it's just a way to play with it. But each of them more is known about it, and so each of them presents interesting challenges. Again, it's the perfect way to do a trilogy, because they flow so naturally from each other historically, by the 1, 2, 3 thing, and also by what is known about them and the ability to complex it. Because the Sargon play is easily the least complex, which was good after doing the Camelot plays, to do a more simple play where it's just people talking, and we get the father and daughter relationship there with Sargon. We get a little bit of his court and his background. The middle play is more complex, and then the Alexander play is a Freudian nightmare.